I'm Amber Wilson, 32, a Seattle real estate agent trapped between family loyalty and professional ethics. When my brother Marcus lost everything, he spotted my newest listing, a luxury beach house sitting empty for 6 months. His desperate plea to move his family in temporarily cracked my resolve. What started as just 1 month spiraled into a nightmare that nearly destroyed my career and our relationship. I never imagined the consequences of that single moment of weakness. Before I tell you how this all unfolded, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, hit that like button, and subscribe if you want more real-life stories about tough choices and unexpected outcomes. My brother Marcus and I had always been close, despite taking different paths in life. While I pursued a career in real estate, building my reputation one listing at a time in Seattle's competitive market, Marcus had settled into what seemed like a stable position at a local tech company. At 38, he had everything figured out, a beautiful home in the suburbs, a loving wife named Heather, and 3 amazing kids, 15-year-old Zoe, 13-year-old Lucas, and 10-year-old Emma. But stability can be an illusion. After 15 years of dedicated service, Marcus became another statistic in the latest round of tech industry layoffs. The severance package that initially seemed generous evaporated quickly under the weight of their mortgage, car payments, and the countless expenses that come with raising 3 children. At first, I did what any sister would do. I helped him polish his resume, connected him with industry contacts, and even slipped him small loans when he struggled to make ends meet. I kept telling myself it was temporary. Marcus was talented and hardworking. Someone would snap him up soon. But 3 months passed, and the job market remained brutally competitive. The few interviews he landed ended with the same crushing feedback: "We've decided to go with someone with more recent experience." Or worse, someone younger and cheaper. I'll never forget the family dinner that changed everything. Marcus had invited me over, saying Heather was making her famous lasagna. It was unusual for a Wednesday night, but I figured they wanted a break from the stress. When I arrived, the house felt different. Boxes were stacked in corners, and the walls were bare where family photos once hung. "What's going on?" I asked, setting down the bottle of wine I'd brought. Marcus and Heather exchanged glances. The kids were unusually quiet at the dinner table. "We're being evicted," Marcus finally said, his voice tight. "We've fallen too far behind on the mortgage. The bank won't work with us anymore." Heather reached for his hand. "We've been trying to figure out where to go, but rental prices are insane, and no one wants to take a chance on us with Marcus unemployed." "Why didn't you tell me it was this bad?" I asked, feeling hurt they'd kept this from me. Zoe, their oldest, suddenly pushed away from the table. "We're going to have to switch schools," she said, tears in her eyes. "I'm going to lose my spot on the volleyball team, and it's my junior year. College scouts are coming this season." She ran upstairs, and we heard her door slam. Lucas stared at his plate. "What about my friends? And my science club? We're going to the state competition next month." Little Emma just looked confused and scared, not fully understanding but absorbing everyone's emotions. The weight of their situation hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't just about a house, it was about stability, community, opportunity. Everything they'd built was crumbling. After dinner, when the kids had gone to their rooms, Marcus pulled up his laptop. "Amber, I've been looking at your listings," he said, opening a familiar page. "This beach house in Cannon Beach, it says the owner is in Europe for 6 months. I immediately shook my head. "No. Absolutely not, Marcus. I know what you're thinking. It's just sitting there empty," he argued. "We'd take perfect care of it. No one would know." "I would know," I countered. "That's Warren Franklin's vacation home. He's a major client. I could lose my license, Marcus. Not to mention face criminal charges." "It would just be for a month," Heather pleaded. "Just until we can find something else. We're desperate, Amber." I stood up, pacing their kitchen. "Do you understand what you're asking me to do? This isn't borrowing a sweater without permission. This is illegal." Marcus fell silent, then spoke in a low voice. Remember when you were in college, and your roommate stole your rent money? Who gave you their entire summer savings so you wouldn't get evicted? The memory stung. I'd been in a terrible situation, and Marcus had sacrificed his plans to help me without hesitation. He'd never once brought it up in the 15 years since, until now. That was different, I said weakly. Was it? Family helps family, Amber. When the system fails, what else do we have? His eyes were pleading. My kids are about to lose everything. Their school, their friends, their sense of security. We just need a little time. I looked at Heather, who was quietly wiping tears. Through the doorway, I could see Emma had come downstairs and was clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit, listening. Something inside me cracked. I knew it was wrong, knew it violated every professional and ethical standard I claimed to uphold. But looking at my niece's frightened face, I found myself nodding slowly. 1 month, I said firmly. Just until you find something else. And there are going to be strict rules. The relief on their faces was palpable. Marcus hugged me tight, whispering thank you over and over. I hugged him back, already feeling the weight of what I'd agreed to do. As I drove home that night, I kept telling myself it was just a temporary solution. The beach house was sitting empty anyway. Warren Franklin probably wouldn't even notice. 1 month to help my family get back on their feet, what could possibly go wrong? Everything, as it turned out. Everything could go wrong. The beach house that would become both our salvation and undoing was a stunning 3-bedroom property perched on a cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean in Cannon Beach. Warren Franklin, a tech executive who split his time between Seattle and Europe, had purchased it as a vacation home 5 years ago. With floor-to-ceiling windows capturing breathtaking ocean views, a gourmet kitchen, and a wraparound deck, it was the kind of property that made my job easy. It practically sold itself during the tourist season. But from October through March, Warren stayed at his villa in southern France, leaving the beach house empty. He refused to rent it short-term. I don't want strangers using my personal things, he'd told me, and so it sat there, pristine and unused, like a museum to coastal luxury. I spent a week meticulously planning the logistics. I scheduled all potential viewings for Tuesdays and Thursdays, when Marcus could take the family on day trips to be out of the house. I created a detailed calendar of when the cleaning service came, first Monday of each month, and when the landscapers maintained the property, every other Wednesday. I even prepared a contingency plan in case Warren decided to return early, setting up text alerts that would give the family at least 24 hours to vacate. The night they moved in, I met them at the property at 10 p.m., after the neighboring houses had gone dark. We unloaded their essential belongings quietly, Marcus backing their minivan as close to the side entrance as possible to avoid being seen. Remember, I whispered as we carried boxes through the door, minimal footprint. Nothing that shows someone's been living here. The kids' eyes were wide as they took in their temporary home. Emma ran straight to the window, pressing her face against the glass to see the moonlight reflecting off the ocean. Lucas examined the sound system with technical curiosity, while Zoe seemed most impressed by the heated bathroom floors. Heather looked terrified, moving through the house like she was afraid to touch anything. "Are you sure about this?" she asked me quietly. No, I wasn't sure. But I nodded anyway. Before I left, I gathered everyone in the living room for what Marcus jokingly called my commandment speech. "Listen carefully," I said, not smiling. 1. Keep a low profile. No visitors, no deliveries, no becoming friends with neighbors. 2. Maintain the house perfectly, it should look unoccupied at all times. 3. When viewings are scheduled, you must be completely gone, with no trace you were ever here. 4. If I text the code word sunshine, it means you need to evacuate immediately. I looked each of them in the eye. This is serious. My career and potentially my freedom are on the line here. They all nodded solemnly. Even Emma seemed to grasp the gravity of the situation. The first week was the hardest. I couldn't sleep, imagining Warren somehow finding out, or the neighbors reporting suspicious activity. Every time my phone rang, I jumped, certain it was bad news. I drove by the house more often than necessary, checking for any signs of their presence visible from outside. There were close calls. The gardener arrived unscheduled one day to check an irrigation issue, sending the family scrambling to hide any evidence of occupation. A neighbor's dog got loose and led its owner right to the property line, where Lucas had accidentally left a soccer ball. I had to claim I'd brought my nephew to see the house and he'd forgotten his toy. But as weeks passed, the initial terror faded into a dull anxiety that hummed in the background of my days. The family settled into a routine, becoming experts at maintaining the illusion of vacancy. They used only the back rooms during daylight hours, keeping curtains drawn. They cooked odorless meals, took quick showers, and spoke in hushed voices. The most remarkable transformation was in their emotional state. The crushing stress that had been evident that night at dinner gradually lifted. Zoe began smiling again. Lucas found a quiet corner of the beach where he could conduct his science experiments without being noticed. Emma seemed to bloom in the beautiful surroundings, creating elaborate stories about mermaids she imagined lived in the cove below. Marcus threw himself into job hunting with renewed vigor, setting up a makeshift office in the guest room furthest from neighboring properties. Heather found temporary remote work as a virtual assistant, contributing a small but steady income. I found myself visiting more often, bringing groceries and checking on their welfare. We'd sit on the deck after sunset, when darkness provided cover, sharing wine and looking at the stars. During these moments, I could almost convince myself we weren't doing anything wrong. "The house is just sitting empty anyway," I said one night, echoing Marcus's original argument. "Warren's probably forgotten he even owns it." Marcus squeezed my shoulder. "One more week and I should hear back about that position in Portland. If I get it, we can start looking for our own place right away." But 1 month stretched into 2. The Portland job fell through. Other promising leads ended in disappointment. Each time, Marcus would look at me with those same pleading eyes from the night at dinner, asking for just a little more time. And each time, I gave in. It was a Thursday evening when my phone lit up with Warren Franklin's name. My stomach dropped as I answered. "Amber." "Good to hear your voice," he said cheerfully. "Slight change of plans. I'm coming back to Seattle next week, earlier than expected. Thought I'd swing by the beach house for a weekend visit." Feeling nostalgic for those Pacific sunsets. The room seemed to spin around me. "Next week?" I managed to choke out. "That's wonderful. The property is in excellent condition, as always." "Perfect. I'll fly in Wednesday, drive down Thursday morning." "No need to meet me there, I've got my keys." As soon as the call ended, I grabbed my car keys and drove straight to Cannon Beach, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. The family needed to evacuate immediately, and I needed to erase every trace of their existence before Warren arrived. This was exactly what I had feared from the beginning. Our time had run out. I called Marcus the second I hit the highway, my voice shaking as I relayed the news. "You need to be out by tomorrow morning. All of you. Everything you brought with you. Warren's coming Thursday." "Tomorrow?" Marcus sounded panicked. "Amber, we need more time. We don't have anywhere to go yet. This isn't negotiable." I nearly shouted into my phone. "I'll be there in 2 hours. Start packing now." When I arrived, the scene was chaotic. Half-filled boxes scattered across rooms, the kids arguing about what to take and what to leave, Heather frantically trying to clean while also sorting their belongings. "We need to be methodical about this," I said, forcing calm into my voice. "First, gather everything that's unmistakably yours. Then we deep clean. I'll go room by room to make sure nothing's been left behind." We worked through the night. By dawn, the family had packed their minivan to bursting. I did a final walkthrough, searching for any evidence they'd been there. I was just about to declare it clear when Emma tugged at my sleeve. "Aunt Amber," she whispered, "I can't find Hoppy." My blood ran cold. Hoppy was Emma's stuffed rabbit, her constant companion since she was a toddler. When did you last see him? I don't know, she said, her lower lip trembling. Maybe in the window seat upstairs? We searched frantically, but Hoppy was nowhere to be found. There was no more time, they had to leave before the neighbors woke up. We'll find him and bring him to you, I promised Emma, wiping her tears. But you have to go now. As they drove away, heading for a budget motel in a neighboring town, I turned back to the house for one final inspection. In addition to the missing stuffed rabbit, I discovered a family photo that had slipped behind a dresser and a homework assignment with Lucas's name in a desk drawer. I cleaned furiously, erasing fingerprints, vacuuming every corner, rearranging furniture to exact positions shown in my listing photos. I was just emptying the last trash can when I noticed something else, a faint but definite water stain on the carpet in the master bedroom, likely from a spilled drink that hadn't been properly cleaned. There was no time to call in professional cleaners. I scrubbed the spot myself, using every cleaning product I could find, but a shadow remained. I moved a decorative side table to cover it, hoping Warren wouldn't notice. He arrived the next day as planned. I met him at the house, maintaining a professional smile despite my pounding heart. Amber. Always good to see you, he greeted me warmly. Warren was in his 50s, fit and tanned from his time in France. You didn't need to meet me here, but I appreciate the personal touch. I wanted to make sure everything was perfect for your visit, I said, leading him inside. He walked through the house slowly, running his hand along surfaces, looking out at the ocean view. I followed, holding my breath each time he paused or looked more closely at something. In the kitchen, he frowned slightly. The coffee maker is in a different position. Oh, the cleaning service probably moved it, I said quickly. They come monthly while you're away. He nodded, but I could tell he was mentally noting other small discrepancies. In the master bedroom, he stopped by the side table I'd positioned over the water stain. This used to be on the other side of the room, didn't it? I thought it looked better here, I improvised. Gets more natural light. We can move it back if you prefer. Warren continued his inspection, pausing again in the guest room. Something feels different, he mused. Can't quite put my finger on it. As we completed the tour, he turned to me with an unreadable expression. Amber, I'm thinking of installing a security system. Cameras, motion sensors, the works. Would your agency be able to coordinate that for me? My stomach lurched. Of course, I managed. Any particular reason? Just a feeling, he said, looking around. This place is isolated. Better safe than sorry. Then he smiled. I'll only be here for the weekend, then heading back to Seattle. Won't return until next month for a proper stay. Plenty of time to get it set up. I nodded, relief flooding through me. We had a reprieve. As soon as Warren left on Sunday, I called Marcus with an update. You need to find somewhere else, I insisted. He's installing security cameras next month. We're trying, Marcus said, sounding exhausted. But the motel is draining what little savings we have left. The kids are cramped in one room. Zoe's barely speaking to us. We're on some waiting lists for affordable housing, but it could be months. What about friends? Other family? Everyone's either out of state or doesn't have the space. Amber, please. Just 2 more weeks. By then, I should hear back about the job in Tacoma. It's looking promising. I closed my eyes, weighing the risks against the image of my nieces and nephew crammed into a dingy motel room, their lives in boxes. 2 weeks, I finally said. But that's it. After that, no matter what, you're out. And you have to be extra careful. No traces whatsoever. They moved back in the next day, with even stricter rules. No using the master bedroom. No adjusting any furniture. Minimal water usage. Emma was heartbroken about Hoppy, who remained missing, but we promised to buy her a new stuffed animal once they were settled somewhere permanent. For a few days, everything seemed under control. Then I got a text from a colleague with a screenshot of an Instagram post. My heart stopped when I saw it, a sunset photo taken from Warren's distinctive deck, clearly recognizable to anyone who knew the property. The caption read, "Beach life isn't so bad #Cannon Beach #Ocean Views #Sunset." It was Zoe's account. In her teenage self-absorption, she'd forgotten, or ignored, our most important rule. I called Marcus immediately, demanding he make her take it down and set her account to private. He assured me he would handle it, but the damage was already done. The post had been up for 3 days. The next morning, I was walking to my car when Mrs. Reynolds, an older woman who lived 2 doors down from my condo, approached me. She was a retired real estate agent herself and took a keen interest in the local market. "Amber, dear," she said, her voice deceptively casual. "That lovely beach house you've been trying to sell in Cannon Beach, the Franklin property. I've been seeing lights on in the evenings lately. And my friend Barbara has a place just down the beach. She mentioned seeing a family there. Young children." My mouth went dry. "Mrs. Reynolds, I assure you the property is vacant. Mr. Franklin is in Europe. Perhaps Barbara saw the cleaning service, or maybe there was a scheduled viewing." She gave me a long look, clearly not believing me. "Well, it's curious. Barbara said she's seen them regularly for weeks now. A teenage girl, a boy, and a little one. Along with adults who certainly aren't Warren Franklin." "I'll look into it," I said stiffly. "Thank you for letting me know." As I drove to work, panic settled in my chest like a weight. The situation was spiraling out of control. It was only a matter of time before Warren heard the rumors. Our 2 weeks were about to be cut very short. The call from Warren came the following morning. I was in a meeting with clients when my phone lit up with his name. I excused myself, hands shaking as I stepped into the hallway. "Amber," Warren's voice was ice cold. "Would you like to explain why there are photos of strangers in my beach house all over social media?" My mind raced for a plausible explanation, but nothing came. "Warren, Don't insult me by lying," he cut me off. "My neighbor Barbara forwarded me an Instagram post. A teenage girl taking selfies in my living room. In my kitchen. On my deck. Tagged at my address. When I checked her profile, there were dozens more going back weeks." I closed my eyes, leaning against the wall for support. "I can explain." "I should hope so. I'm currently looking at a video of a young boy conducting what appears to be a science experiment on my dining room table. My $15,000 dining room table." "I'll come down right away," I said. "We can discuss this in person." "You do that," Warren replied. "And Amber?" "I've already called your broker, Riley. He's expecting to hear from you as well." The line went dead. I canceled my appointments for the day and drove straight to Cannon Beach, calling Marcus repeatedly. He didn't answer. When I finally reached Heather, she sounded frantic. "Marcus went for a job interview in Portland," she explained. "He turned his phone off." "What's happening?" I explained the situation as calmly as I could. "You need to pack up. Now. Warren knows everything." "But Marcus has the car," she said. "He won't be back until this evening." "Start packing anyway," I instructed. "I'll be there in an hour." The drive to Cannon Beach was a blur of anxiety and regret. How had I let this happen? My career was likely over. My reputation destroyed. All because I couldn't say no to my brother. When I arrived, Heather had made little progress packing. Emma was crying about leaving her mermaid beach, while Lucas was arguing he needed to finish his science project first. Zoe was nowhere to be seen. "Where's Zoe?" I demanded. "She ran off when I told her what happened," Heather said, looking defeated. "She knows it's her fault for posting those photos. I think she went down to the beach." I found her sitting on a driftwood log, staring out at the waves, her face streaked with tears. "I'm sorry," she whispered when she saw me. "I didn't think anyone would notice or care." It was just for my friends. Nothing online is ever just for friends, I said, sitting beside her. But what's done is done. We need to focus on getting you all out of here before Warren arrives. When we returned to the house, my phone rang again. It was Riley, my boss. Amber, what the hell is going on? He demanded without preamble. Warren Franklin is threatening to sue the agency. He says you allowed squatters in his property? Please tell me this is a misunderstanding. I stepped outside so the family couldn't hear. Riley, it's complicated. The people staying there, it's my brother and his family. They were facing eviction. I made a terrible judgment call. The silence on the other end was deafening. You're suspended, effective immediately, he finally said. Pending a full investigation. I need you to bring your current files and keys to the office tomorrow. The board will need to review whether this warrants termination and reporting to the licensing authority. I understand, I said quietly. I've known you for 6 years, Amber, Riley continued, his tone softening slightly. You've been one of our best agents. What were you thinking? I wasn't, I admitted. I was just trying to help my family. Well, your family may have cost you your career. Fix this with Warren if you can, but I'm not optimistic. As I hung up, a car pulled into the driveway. My heart sank as I recognized Warren's sleek black BMW. He got out, his expression thunderous. Where are they? He demanded. Warren, please, I began. Let me explain the situation. Save it, he snapped, brushing past me into the house. Inside, Heather stood frozen in the living room, Emma clinging to her side. Lucas had appeared from upstairs, looking terrified. So it's true, Warren said, taking in the scene. You've been living here. In my house. Using my things. Mr. Franklin, Heather started. We're so sorry. We were desperate. I don't care what you were, he interrupted. This is breaking and entering. Trespassing. Illegal occupation of private property. They had my permission, I said, stepping forward. I'm the one you should be angry with. Not them. Warren turned to me, incredulous. Your permission? This isn't your house to give permission for, Amber. I trusted you as my agent. I gave you keys to protect my property, not to move in squatters. They're not squatters, I protested weakly. They're my family. Warren shook his head in disgust. Even worse. You abused your professional position to help your family commit a crime. He began walking through the house, cataloging each sign of their occupation, items moved, things worn, small damages we hadn't noticed. In the master bathroom, he found children's toothbrushes. In the kitchen, food we'd missed removing from the back of the refrigerator. When he reached the living room rug, he stopped. What's this stain? Is this paint? Lucas stepped forward. It was my science project, sir. I was trying to create a special type of biodegradable plastic and some of the colored solution spilled. I cleaned it up right away, but it left a mark. I'm really sorry. Warren's jaw tightened. Do you have any idea how much this custom rug cost? Before Lucas could answer, there was a commotion at the front door. Marcus had arrived, looking confused and alarmed to see Warren's car in the driveway. What's going on? He asked, stepping inside. His eyes widened when he saw Warren. You must be the mastermind behind this operation, Warren said coldly. Marcus looked to me, then back to Warren. Mr. Franklin, I take full responsibility. This was my idea. Amber tried to say no, but I pressured her. We were facing homelessness, and I was desperate to keep my family safe. So you decided theft was the answer? We didn't steal anything, Marcus protested. You stole the use of my property, Warren countered. You stole my security and privacy. You damaged my belongings. He turned back to me. I'll be contacting the police to file a report. And my attorney. As for you, Amber, your career in real estate is over. I've already spoken with the licensing board. The words hit like physical blows. Everything I'd worked for, gone. All because of one terrible decision. Please, Heather said, tears streaming down her face. We'll make this right somehow. We'll pay for any damages. Warren laughed without humor. With what money? You're living in someone else's house because you can't afford your own. Emma suddenly darted forward, holding something in her small hands. Mr. Franklin, I found Hoppy. He was stuck behind the washing machine. He's not damaged. Please don't be mad at everyone because of me. She held out her worn stuffed rabbit, offering it as if it might somehow make amends. For a moment, Warren's expression softened slightly. Then he shook his head. I want you all out of my house in 2 hours. Anything left behind will be considered abandoned property. He looked at me. I expected better from you, Amber. Much better. As he walked out, the weight of what I'd done, what we'd all done, settled over the room like a heavy blanket. My career was in shambles. My brother's family was facing homelessness again. And the relationship between Marcus and me, once so strong, now felt fractured beyond repair. I'm sorry, Marcus said quietly. This is all my fault. But we both knew that wasn't entirely true. I had made my own choices. And now we all had to live with the consequences. The 2 hours Warren gave us to vacate the beach house passed in a blur of frantic packing and tense silence. Nobody spoke except to ask where something was or who was taking what box. The weight of our collective poor decisions hung in the air, making it hard to breathe. Emma sat on the front steps clutching Hoppy, occasionally wiping away silent tears. Lucas mechanically dismantled his science project, carefully packing the components with none of his usual enthusiasm. Zoe moved like a ghost through the rooms, helping pack while avoiding eye contact with everyone. Marcus and Heather worked efficiently but separately, the strain evident in their rigid postures and the careful way they avoided brushing against each other. The unity they'd maintained through months of hardship was cracking under this new pressure. As for me, I moved automatically, helping where I could while my mind raced with the implications of what had happened. My career, the thing I'd built my entire adult identity around, was likely over. The licensing board wouldn't look kindly on an agent who allowed unauthorized occupancy of a client's property. Even if I somehow kept my license, my reputation in Seattle's close-knit real estate community was destroyed. We had just finished loading the last of their belongings when Warren returned, his attorney in tow. The lawyer, a stern-looking woman with sharp eyes, handed me a document. This is formal notice of Mr. Franklin's intent to pursue legal action against you for breach of fiduciary duty, professional misconduct, and conspiracy to commit trespass, she explained clinically. We're also documenting the condition of the property as you leave it. Warren stood in the doorway, arms crossed. I've decided not to involve the police, he said, his voice clipped. Not out of consideration for you, but because I don't want the publicity. My attorney assures me civil action will be sufficient. Thank you, I said quietly. He laughed without humor. Don't thank me. I'm still going to make sure you never work in real estate again. As we drove away in separate cars, Marcus and his family in their overcrowded minivan, me in my now meaningless real estate agent's sensible sedan, the reality of our situation hit me fully. We had gambled everything on this temporary solution, and we had lost spectacularly. The family checked into the Driftwood Motel, a rundown establishment on the outskirts of town that charged by the week. It was all they could afford, and even that would only last until their meager savings ran out. We'll figure something out, Marcus said hollowly as I helped them carry boxes from the car. The single room was depressingly small for 5 people, 2 double beds, a pull-out couch, a mini fridge, and a bathroom with a shower that ran either ice-cold or scalding hot. Emma immediately claimed a corner, setting up Hoppy and her few remaining toys as if trying to create some semblance of normalcy. Lucas sat at the small table by the window, staring blankly at his science notes. Zoe disappeared into the bathroom and didn't come out for nearly an hour. I should have said no, I told Marcus as we stood in the parking lot. To all of it. From the beginning. And we would have been in a place like this months ago, he replied. At least we had some time to try and get back on our feet. And did you? Get back on your feet? The question hung between us. We both knew the answer. The interview today went well, he offered without much conviction. They said they'll let me know by next week. I nodded, not believing it any more than he did. Call me if you need anything, I said, walking to my car. Amber, he called after me. I'm sorry I dragged you into this. I turned back. You didn't drag me. I walked in willingly. The truth was, I needed him to be responsible so I could blame him, but I knew better. We both made mistakes. Driving back to Seattle, I kept replaying Warren's words in my mind. Your career in real estate is over. 6 years of building a reputation, of earning trust, of climbing from rookie agent to one of the top producers at my firm, all gone because I couldn't maintain proper boundaries with my family. The next few days were a nightmare of professional humiliation. I met with Riley to hand over my files and office keys. The disappointment in his eyes hurt more than his words. The board is meeting next week to discuss your case, he told me. In the meantime, I've had to reassign all your listings. Clients are already requesting new agents. Word spread quickly through the industry. Former colleagues stopped returning my calls. A lunch meeting with my mentor was cancelled via text message. Even Mrs. Reynolds averted her eyes when we passed in the hallway of our condo building. Meanwhile, Marcus and his family were falling apart in their motel room. Heather called daily with updates, each one worse than the last. Zoe had gotten into a fight at her new school. Lucas was refusing to eat. Emma had developed a persistent cough from the mold in their room. Their meager savings were dwindling fast, with no job prospects in sight. The lowest moment came a week after the confrontation with Warren. I was sitting in my apartment, surrounded by half-packed boxes. I couldn't afford the rent without my commission income, when my phone rang with a Seattle number I didn't recognize. It was a journalist from the Seattle Real Estate Journal. Ms. Wilson, I'm calling for comment on the allegations that you allowed unauthorized occupancy of a client's luxury property. We're running a piece on ethical breaches in the industry, and I hung up, my hand shaking. It wasn't just my license or my job at stake anymore, it was my entire reputation. No one would hire me for any position of trust after this story broke. That night, I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine, staring out at the Seattle skyline I'd probably have to leave behind. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Job fell through. Motel raising rates next week. Don't know what to do. I didn't respond. I didn't have any answers. For the first time in my adult life, I had no plan, no next step. I had always been the responsible one, the successful one, the one who had it all figured out. Now I was unemployed, possibly facing legal action, and unable to even help my own family. As I contemplated the shattered pieces of my life, my phone rang again. Unknown number. Probably another reporter. I almost didn't answer, but some small spark of hope made me pick up. Ms. Wilson? It's Warren Franklin. We need to talk. I met Warren the next morning at a small coffee shop in downtown Seattle. I chose a corner table, away from windows, hoping to avoid being recognized by anyone from the industry. Paranoia had become my constant companion. Warren arrived precisely on time, dressed casually in jeans and a sweater, a stark contrast to his usual business attire. He ordered a black coffee and sat across from me, studying my face for a long moment before speaking. You look terrible, he said finally. I almost laughed. That's what happens when your life implodes. I suppose it does. He stirred his coffee methodically. I've been thinking about our situation. Our situation? I repeated. I was under the impression this was my situation. The consequences of my terrible decision. Warren nodded slowly. That's what I thought too. But something's been bothering me since that day at the beach house. What's that? The little girl, Emma, is it? offering me her stuffed rabbit. As if that could somehow make things right. He shook his head. It reminded me of something. I waited as he seemed to struggle with what to say next. When I was 10, he continued eventually, my father lost his job. This was in the 80s, during a recession. We lost our house within months. Ended up living in our station wagon for a while. This was not what I had expected. Warren Franklin, tech executive and owner of multiple properties, had been homeless? I remember offering my baseball card collection to the bank manager, he said with a sad smile. Thought it might convince him to let us stay in our house. Kids don't understand how these things work. No, they don't, I agreed softly, thinking of Emma. Warren leaned forward. Let me be clear, Amber. What you did was unprofessional, unethical, and illegal. There's no excusing that. I know, I said, looking down at my untouched coffee. But I've been where your brother's family is. And while I don't condone how you handled it, I understand the desperation that drove the decision. Hope flickered faintly. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm willing to discuss an alternative to destroying your career and suing your family into oblivion. My heart rate quickened. I'm listening. I want the truth, he said firmly. The whole story. No omissions, no minimizing. I want to understand exactly what happened and why. For the next hour, I told him everything. How Marcus had lost his job after 15 years. How they'd fallen behind on their mortgage. The dinner where I'd learned they were facing eviction. The children's fears about losing their schools and friends. My initial refusal and subsequent capitulation. The rules we'd established. The ways we'd justified it to ourselves. Warren listened without interrupting, his expression neutral. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. Do you know how I got out of that station wagon and eventually became successful enough to own multiple properties? He asked finally. I shook my head. Someone took a chance on my father. Gave him a job when no one else would. Then helped us find affordable housing until we could get back on our feet. He paused. It wasn't charity. My father worked harder than anyone else at that company for the next 20 years. But he needed that opportunity when everything seemed hopeless. Warren pulled out his phone, checking something before continuing. I've spoken with my attorney. I'm willing to make you and your brother's family an offer. What kind of offer? I asked cautiously. I won't press charges or pursue the lawsuit on one condition: you both have to make proper amends. How? For you, that means accepting whatever discipline the real estate board decides, without fighting it. Take your lumps professionally. I nodded slowly. That seemed reasonable, if painful. For your brother and his family, it's a bit different. The beach house needs renovation, new paint, some updated fixtures, general maintenance I've been putting off. I need someone to oversee that work and be my on-site property manager when I'm not there. I stared at him, not comprehending at first. You want to hire Marcus? I want to give him the opportunity to fix what he broke, literally and figuratively. He'd live in the small guest cottage on the property, not the main house. It's modest but functional. The position includes a small salary, enough to get by while he continues his job search. In exchange, he maintains the property and oversees the contractors I hire for the renovations. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. And his family? They come with him, of course. The cottage has 2 bedrooms. Tight for 5 people, but better than a motel room. The kids can stay in their current schools. It was more than I could have hoped for. Why would you do this? Warren's expression softened slightly. Because ruining lives doesn't benefit anyone. And because 35 years ago, someone did something similar for my family. He straightened, his tone becoming businesslike again. But let me be clear, this is a professional arrangement. If Marcus doesn't fulfill his responsibilities, the deal is off. And you'll both still have to face the consequences of your actions with the real estate board. I understand, I said. Thank you doesn't seem adequate, but thank you. Warren stood to leave. I haven't done anything yet. This offer depends on your brother's response. Have him call me directly to discuss details. He placed a business card on the table. And Amber? Everyone makes mistakes. The measure of a person is what they do afterward. The meeting with the real estate disciplinary board the following week was every bit as difficult as I'd expected. I admitted to all charges, offered no excuses, and accepted their decision: a 6-month license suspension, mandatory ethics courses, and 2 years of supervised practice once my license was reinstated. It was a severe punishment, but not career-ending. Thanks to Warren's decision not to pursue legal action, I would eventually be able to work in real estate again, albeit with a significant mark on my record. Marcus initially hesitated to accept Warren's offer, pride making him resistant to what he perceived as charity. It's not charity, I told him firmly during a tense conversation at the motel. It's a job. With responsibilities and expectations. And it's a chance to show your children how to make amends when you've done something wrong. By working for the man we wronged, he asked bitterly. Yes. Exactly that. I took his hands. Marcus, this is the best outcome we could possibly hope for. Your kids get stability. You get time to find permanent work without the pressure of imminent homelessness. And you get to restore some dignity by working for what you receive. Eventually, he agreed. The family moved into the cottage the following weekend. It was indeed small, with the 3 kids sharing one bedroom, but it was clean, safe, and a short walk to the beach Emma had come to love. Warren proved to be a demanding but fair employer. He expected Marcus to work hard overseeing the renovations, but he also provided references for job applications and occasionally brought business contacts to meet him. As for me, I spent my suspension working as an administrative assistant at a small property management firm, humble work that barely covered my bills after downsizing to a studio apartment. Each day was an exercise in swallowing my pride and accepting the consequences of my actions. Slowly, painfully, we began to rebuild. My relationship with Marcus, strained by blame and resentment in the immediate aftermath, gradually healed as we both acknowledged our roles in what had happened. 3 months after that fateful confrontation at the beach house, we all gathered for dinner at the cottage. The renovation of the main house was nearly complete, with Marcus proving surprisingly skilled at coordinating contractors and solving problems. Warren's coming tomorrow to check the final work, he told me as we sat on the small porch after dinner. He mentioned he might have a lead on a permanent position for me with one of his investment partners. That's great, I said sincerely. You've earned it. Have I? Marcus looked out toward the ocean. Sometimes I feel like I've just been cleaning up my own mess. That's part of earning back trust, I replied. It's not easy or quick. He nodded thoughtfully. How about you? 3 more months of suspension, right? Yes. Then supervised practice. It's a long road back. But you'll make it, he said with certainty. We both will. As the sun set over the Pacific, I found myself thinking about Warren's words from our coffee shop meeting. The measure of a person is what they do afterward. We had made terrible choices, but perhaps our response to those mistakes would ultimately define us more than the mistakes themselves. For the first time in months, I felt a genuine sense of hope. We had fallen hard, but we were finding our way back up, one careful step at a time. 3 months later, on a crisp autumn morning, I stood at the entrance of Westside Realty, a small agency across town from my former employer. With my license reinstated but requiring supervision, Riley had been unable to take me back, or perhaps unwilling, given the stain on my reputation. After dozens of rejections, Diane Maxwell, the owner of Westside, had finally agreed to give me a chance as an assistant to her senior agents. You come highly recommended, she had said during my interview, surprising me. By whom? I asked, genuinely puzzled. Warren Franklin. She smiled at my shocked expression. He said you made a serious error in judgment but handled the aftermath with integrity. Warren's unexpected advocacy had opened this door, but walking through it required swallowing my pride. After years of being a top-producing agent, I was now making coffee, scheduling appointments, and doing paperwork for others. It was humbling, but it was also a path forward. Meanwhile, Marcus had transformed in ways none of us could have predicted. What began as a temporary property management position had evolved into a legitimate career path. Warren's investment partner had indeed hired Marcus full-time to oversee maintenance for their portfolio of vacation properties along the Oregon coast. His technical background proved unexpectedly valuable in modernizing their booking and maintenance systems. More surprising was the side business Marcus had started, a handyman service specializing in vacation rental maintenance. His first-hand experience of living in one had given him insight into common issues, and property owners appreciated his thorough approach. Lucas often accompanied him on weekends, learning practical skills while bonding with his father. "It's not the corporate job I thought I wanted," Marcus told me during one of our now regular Sunday dinners at their new rented house in Cannon Beach. "But I'm happier than I'd been in years." The cottage had been a temporary home, but it had given them time to save, rebuild credit, and eventually secure a modest long-term rental. The children had stayed in their schools, with Zoe now actively applying to colleges with renewed confidence. Our relationship had healed gradually, through difficult conversations and shared efforts to rebuild our lives. The initial blame and resentment had given way to a deeper understanding of each other's strengths and weaknesses. "Remember when we couldn't even look at each other?" I asked as we cleared dishes together after dinner. Marcus nodded. "I was so angry at myself, I couldn't help projecting it onto you. And I wanted to blame you for pressuring me, when I knew perfectly well I made my own choice." Heather joined us, drying a serving bowl. "We all made choices. Some good, some terrible." "Speaking of choices," Marcus said, "Warren called today. He's having a small gathering next weekend at the beach house. He invited all of us." I nearly dropped the plate I was washing. "All of us? Including me?" "Especially you," Marcus confirmed. "He said it's to celebrate the completion of the renovations, but I think there's more to it." The Warren Franklin I'd known before this ordeal would never have hosted such a gathering. The wealthy, somewhat aloof client who kept his personal and professional lives strictly separated had somehow become a person who cared about the welfare of the family who had once illegally occupied his property. The gathering turned out to be more than a celebration of renovations. As we stood on the deck of the now transformed beach house, Warren raised a glass. "To second chances," he said, looking meaningfully at Marcus and me. "And to the unexpected ways we find our true paths." Later, as the evening wound down, Warren took me aside. "How's the new position working out?" "It's challenging," I admitted. "Starting over, earning trust again. But I'm grateful for the opportunity." He nodded thoughtfully. "Diane says you're doing excellent work. Very detail-oriented." "I've learned to be careful," I said with a wry smile. "Perhaps too careful?" Warren suggested. "The best professionals learn from mistakes without becoming paralyzed by them. That's a difficult balance to find." "Indeed. But necessary." He handed me a business card. "I'm expanding my real estate investments. Looking for someone to manage them once your supervision period ends. Someone who understands the value of ethical boundaries but also cares about helping people." I stared at the card, speechless. "Think about it," he said simply, before rejoining the others. As I watched the sunset from the same deck where this journey had begun, where Zoe had once taken illicit selfies, where Emma had invented stories about mermaids, where Lucas had conducted his experiments, I reflected on everything that had happened. We had made a terrible choice born of desperation and misplaced loyalty. That choice had nearly destroyed my career and further destabilized Marcus's already struggling family. The consequences had been severe and painful, as they should have been. But something unexpected had emerged from the rubble of our mistakes. Marcus had discovered a new career path that brought him satisfaction he'd never found in corporate life. I had learned hard lessons about professional boundaries and ethics that made me a more grounded agent. The children had witnessed adults making serious errors but also taking responsibility and rebuilding with integrity. And Warren Franklin, the wronged party in all of this, had found a way to balance accountability with compassion, forever changing my understanding of true leadership. Later that evening, as we gathered for a family photo, Marcus, Heather, the kids, myself, and even Warren, I realized that the beach house that had nearly ruined us had ultimately been the catalyst for our transformation. Not because we had improperly occupied it during a time of desperation, but because of how we had chosen to make amends afterward. Everyone makes mistakes, Warren had told me months ago. The measure of a person is what they do afterward. Those words had become my mantra, guiding me through the hardest days of my suspension, through rejection and humiliation, through the slow, painstaking process of rebuilding my professional reputation. They were words I would carry forward into whatever came next, whether that was Warren's job offer or something else entirely. Because I had learned that integrity isn't about never falling, it's about how you rise after the fall. As the stars came out over the Pacific Ocean, I felt a deep sense of peace replace the anxiety that had been my constant companion for so long. We had all found our way to something better, not despite our mistakes, but because of how we had chosen to address them. That, perhaps, was the most valuable lesson of all. If you've ever made a difficult choice to help family that backfired, I'd love to hear your story in the comments below. How did you rebuild trust afterward? Did something positive eventually emerge from your mistake? And what would you have done differently in my situation? Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more real-life stories about ethical dilemmas and personal growth. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and remember, our worst mistakes don't have to define us if we respond to them with honesty, accountability, and a genuine desire to make things right.